The silent cry. Commander Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cold metal of the observation deck, watching the stars drift past like ancient diamonds scattered across black velvet. The exploration vessel Prometheus had been her home for 3 years now, carrying a crew of 47 souls through the outer reaches of known space. Their mission was simple: map new systems, catalog resources, and establish friendly contact with any species they encountered. Elena had joined the Terran Exploration Corps not for glory or adventure, but because she believed humanity's greatest strength lay in reaching out to others. Her grandmother had been a translator during the first alien contact protocols, and Elena had grown up hearing stories about the wonder of meeting new civilizations. She never expected to encounter something that would test every principle she held dear. Lieutenant Tom Bradley called from the navigation station, his voice carrying that particular tension that meant something unusual was happening. "Commander, we are picking up energy signatures from the void sector. The patterns are unlike anything in our database." Elena turned from the viewport, her dark eyes focusing on the data streaming across the main display. The void sector was officially designated as empty space, a region where long-range scans had never detected any signs of civilization or even basic stellar formations. Most ships avoided it entirely, considering it a navigational dead zone. "What kind of energy signatures?" she asked, moving to stand behind Bradley's station. "They are organic. Definitely biological in nature, but the power output is massive. If I didn't know better, I'd say we are looking at an entire civilization in distress." Dr. James Reeves, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from his research terminal with excitement dancing in his eyes. "Commander, if there's a species out there that we've never encountered, this could be the discovery of the century. We have to investigate." Elena nodded slowly, weighing the implications. The Prometheus was equipped for first contact scenarios. But venturing into unexplored space always carried risks. However, the possibility of helping a species in distress overrode her caution. "Set course for the energy source. Maximum safe speed." The journey took 18 hours, during which time the energy signatures grew stronger and more complex. Elena found herself unable to sleep, pacing the corridors and checking with the various departments. Something about the readings felt desperate, like a scream echoing through the vacuum of space. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, the sight that greeted them stole Elena's breath away. Before them floated a massive space station, its architecture flowing and organic like a living coral reef. But this was no natural formation. The structure pulsed with bioluminescent lights that seemed to beat like a heart, and Elena could see smaller vessels moving around it in patterns that suggested both beauty and desperation. "Commander," Bradley's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm reading massive life signs. There are millions of beings on that station." Before Elena could respond, their communications array crackled to life. The voice that emerged was unlike anything they had heard before, liquid and melodious, like water flowing over stones, but tinged with unmistakable sorrow. "Unknown vessel, this is Ambassador Silthara of the Cathani. We did not expect to encounter anyone in this sector. Most ships avoid us now." Elena stepped forward, activating the Universal Translator protocols. "Ambassador Silthara, this is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Terran vessel Prometheus. We detected your energy signatures and came to investigate. Are you in need of assistance?" The silence that followed stretched so long that Elena wondered if the communication had been lost. When Silthara finally spoke again, her voice carried a weight of emotion that transcended species barriers. "Terran. You are human. We have heard of your kind, but we never dared hope. Commander Vasquez, my people are dying. Our homeworld is being consumed by something we cannot stop, and every species we have begged for help has turned us away. We have nothing left to offer in trade, no resources valuable enough to justify the cost of saving us." Elena felt her heart clench. "Permission to come aboard, Ambassador. Let us see what we can do." The docking process was complex, requiring their ship to interface with technology unlike anything in Terran databases. As Elena and her senior staff prepared to board the Cathani station, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to witness something that would change everything. The airlock opened to reveal Ambassador Silthara, and Elena understood immediately why other species might have found the Cathani difficult to relate to. The ambassador stood nearly 8 feet tall, her body graceful and fluid like a being designed for underwater movement. Her skin was a deep blue-green that seemed to shift and flow, and her large eyes held depths that spoke of ancient wisdom and current despair. "Commander Vasquez," Silthara said, her voice creating harmonics that seemed to resonate in Elena's bones. "Thank you for coming. I will show you what we face, though I warn you, the sight is not easy to bear." They were led through corridors that seemed to pulse with life, past chambers where Elena could see Kethani of all ages going about their daily routines with the quiet dignity of a people who had accepted their fate. The technology around them was breathtaking, walls that seemed to be grown rather than built, systems that responded to thought rather than touch, art that moved and changed as they watched. "Your civilization is remarkable," Dr. Reeves breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. "The integration of biology and technology is beyond anything we've ever seen." Silthara's expression grew sadder. "Yes, we were proud of what we had built. But pride means nothing when your world is dying." They entered a vast observation chamber where the truth was laid bare. Through the transparent walls, Elena could see the Kethani homeworld, a planet that should have been covered in vast oceans, teeming with the underwater cities that were the hallmark of their civilization. Instead, she saw a world being consumed by something that looked like crystalline cancer. Massive formations of what appeared to be living crystal were spreading across the ocean floors, draining the water and converting everything they touched into more of themselves. The few remaining cities were trapped in ever-shrinking pockets of sea, their inhabitants fleeing to stations like this one as their world literally died around them. "The Nexus," Silthara explained, her voice hollow. "They appeared 3 years ago. We don't know where they came from or why they chose us. They consume everything, water, plant life, even the minerals in our ocean floors. Everything becomes part of their crystalline matrix." Elena watched in horror as one of the crystal formations pulsed and expanded, swallowing another section of ocean. "Have you tried to fight them?" "We are not a warlike people, Commander. Our weapons are designed for protection, not destruction. Everything we have tried only seems to make them stronger. They adapt to our attacks and grow more resilient." Chief Engineer Sarah Kim, who had been quietly studying the readouts, stepped forward. "What about the other species? Surely someone in the galactic community has the technology to help." Silthara's laugh was bitter. "We have pleaded with them all. The Altarian Republic told us our situation was economically non-viable. The Centauri Federation said that intervention would violate their non-interference policies. The vegan collective offered to relocate survivors to labor camps on their mining worlds. Even the Andromedans, who claimed to be guardians of peace, said our world was already lost and resources would be better spent elsewhere." Elena felt a familiar anger building in her chest. It was the same feeling she had experienced as a child. When she watched bullies pick on smaller children, the same fire that had driven her to become an explorer in the first place. "How many of your people are left?" "Perhaps 200 million, scattered across dozens of stations like this one. Our population was once nearly 10 billion. The number hit Elena like a physical blow. An entire civilization was being erased. While the galaxy's major powers calculated profit margins and political advantages, she turned to her senior staff, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. "What do you need from us?" she asked. Silthara stared at her in amazement. "Commander, you are one ship. We cannot ask you to risk your lives for a cause that even the great powers have abandoned." "You're not asking," Elena replied firmly. "I'm offering. My grandmother always told me that the measure of a person isn't what they do when everyone's watching, but what they do when no one else will step forward. Tell me what you need." Asterisk. Over the next several hours, Elena and her team learned everything they could about the Nexus parasites. The creatures were unlike anything in known xenobiology databases. They seemed to exist in a state between organic and inorganic matter, consuming biological material and converting it into crystalline formations that could think and act collectively. Dr. Reeves worked with Kethani scientists to understand the parasites' biology, while Chief Kim studied their technological aspects. Lieutenant Bradley analyzed their movement patterns and growth rates. Slowly, a picture emerged of an enemy that was terrifyingly efficient and seemingly unstoppable. They are not just destroying your world, Dr. Reeves reported to Elena. They are converting it. Every bit of organic matter becomes part of their collective consciousness. In a way, they are turning your entire planet into a single, massive organism. Elena absorbed this information while watching the Kethani go about their daily lives. Children played in the corridors, their laughter a defiant sound against the backdrop of extinction. Adults worked at stations, maintaining the systems that kept their people alive. Teachers held classes, passing on knowledge that might never find another generation to receive it. Commander, Lieutenant Bradley approached her with a grim expression. I've been monitoring communications from the major powers. They are all aware of the situation here, but there's been no movement toward intervention. In fact, some of them are already discussing how to divide up this sector of space once the Kethani are gone. The casual cruelty of it made Elena's stomach turn. Entire civilizations were being written off as acceptable losses while politicians made plans to exploit the empty space left behind. She activated her personal communicator, connecting to the Prometheus. This is Commander Vasquez. I need to speak with Earth Command immediately. The conversation that followed was exactly what Elena had expected and everything she had dreaded. Admiral Harrison, her superior, listened to her report with growing irritation. Commander, you are not authorized to make first contact with previously unknown species. Your mission parameters were clear: observe and report, nothing more. Sir, with respect, we are talking about genocide. An entire species is being wiped out while the galaxy watches. That's not our concern, Commander. Earth has enough problems without getting involved in alien conflicts. You are ordered to withdraw immediately and return to your patrol route. Elena looked around the observation chamber, seeing the Kethani faces watching her with desperate hope. These people had been abandoned by everyone they had turned to for help. How could she be just another disappointment in a long line of failures? I understand my orders, Admiral, but I respectfully declined to follow them. The silence from Earth Command was deafening. Finally, Admiral Harrison spoke, his voice cold with fury. Commander Vasquez, you are relieving yourself of command and potentially facing court-martial. Return to Earth immediately. No, sir. I won't leave these people to die while we debate politics and procedure. Elena cut the connection and turned to her senior staff. I've just ended my career in the Exploration Corps. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to human space. I won't think less of anyone who chooses to go. Dr. Reeves stepped forward first. Commander, I joined this service to explore and help others. I'm not leaving now. Chief Kim nodded firmly. My grandmother lived through the water wars on Mars. She always said that when good people do nothing, evil wins by default. I'm staying. One by one, every member of the senior staff committed to remaining. Elena felt a surge of pride in her crew that was almost overwhelming. These people were risking everything for strangers they had just met. Ambassador Silthara had been listening to the exchange with growing amazement. Commander, you would sacrifice your career, your future, for people you do not even know. Elena smiled, feeling more certain of her choice than she had ever felt about anything. Ambassador, if we can't stand up for others when they need help, what kind of people are we? What kind of galaxy are we creating? As if summoned by her words, the communications array crackled to life again. This time, the voice was different, younger, filled with determination. Commander Vasquez, this is Captain Marcus Chen of the Destroyer Defiance. We've been monitoring your communications. We are 3 hours out and closing fast. Elena's heart leaped. Captain Chen, you're risking your career by coming here. With respect, some things are more important than careers. We are bringing friends. Over the next hour, Elena watched in awe as more and more human vessels emerged from hyperspace. The Destroyer Defiance, the research vessel Curiosity, the cargo hauler Determination, and even the small patrol craft Resilience. Each ship brought its own crew of volunteers who had heard about the situation and chosen to help. Elena stood in the observation chamber, watching the small but growing human fleet take position around the Kethani station. Around her, Kethani of all ages were gathering, their faces filled with something Elena hadn't seen before: hope. They came, Silthara whispered, her voice filled with wonder. They actually came. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. They had answered the call, but now they had to figure out how to actually help. The Nexus parasites had consumed most of a planet and defeated every attempt to stop them. A handful of human ships seemed laughably inadequate against such a force, but as she looked at the determined faces around her, both human and Cathani, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood. It was the absolute certainty that they were doing the right thing, regardless of the cost. Sometimes, she realized, the most important battles were the ones nobody expected you to win. When hope has a human face, the war council that assembled aboard the Prometheus was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Around the central holographic display, human officers sat alongside Cathani scientists, their different physiologies and communication methods creating a symphony of cooperation that somehow worked despite its complexity. Elena stood at the head of the table, studying the tactical displays that showed the Nexus infestation in horrifying detail. The crystalline parasites had consumed nearly 80% of the Cathani homeworld, their growth accelerating with each passing day. At their current rate of expansion, the remaining ocean sanctuaries would be gone within a week. The question, she said to the assembled group, is not whether we can fight them. The question is how we can hurt them enough to make a difference. Captain Marcus Chen of the Defiance leaned forward, his weathered face grim. Commander, I've been in fleet actions against the Rigel pirates and the Centauri rebellion. I've never seen anything like this. These things don't just fight, they consume and convert. Every attack we make just gives them more material to work with. Dr. Sarah Kim, the Prometheus's chief engineer, had been working around the clock with Cathani scientists to understand the enemy. She activated a series of microscopic images that showed the Nexus parasites in detail. They are not purely organic or purely technological. They exist in some kind of hybrid state, converting biological matter into crystalline matrices that can think and act collectively. Asterisk. Elena studied the images, seeing structures that looked like living geometry. What about weaknesses? Everything has vulnerabilities. A young Cathani scientist named Veltar spoke up, his voice carrying the musical tones of his species. We have tried everything, Commander. Energy weapons, kinetic bombardment, even biological warfare. The Nexus adapts to everything we throw at them. They seem to learn from each attack and become stronger. Elena felt frustration building in her chest. They had risked everything to come here, but what could they do that the Cathani hadn't already tried? Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, sometimes the solution isn't about being stronger, Elena. Sometimes it's about being different. Wait, she said suddenly. Veltar, you said they adapt to everything you've tried. But have they ever encountered humans before? The Cathani scientist's large eyes widened. No, Commander. Until today, we had never met your species. Why? Dr. Reeves, who had been quietly studying the biological data, suddenly straightened. Elena, I think you're onto something. The Nexus parasites have adapted to Cathani biology and technology. They've learned to process your biochemistry and convert your resources. But they've never encountered human physiology. Elena felt a spark of hope. What exactly are you thinking, Doctor? I need to run some tests, but I have a theory. The Nexus parasites seem to require specific mineral compositions to maintain their crystalline structure. The Cathani homeworld is rich in the heavy metals they need. But what if we could introduce something toxic to their system? Something they can't adapt to because they've never encountered it. Chief Kim leaned forward. What kind of toxin? Dr. Reeves smiled grimly. Something uniquely human. Our blood chemistry is based on iron rather than the copper-based systems common to most aquatic species. More importantly, we produce specific enzymes that might be lethal to crystalline-based organisms. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Are you saying we might be able to poison them? I'm saying we might be able to create a biological weapon using our own blood and bodily fluids. The salt in human tears, the specific pH of our blood, the unique proteins we produce, it could all be toxic to creatures that have never evolved to deal with Earth-based biochemistry. Ambassador Selthara, who had been listening quietly, moved closer to the display. Doctor, if this is true, how would we deliver such a weapon? The Nexus formations are massive, covering entire continents of our ocean floor. Elena looked around. The table at the faces of her crew and the Cathani scientists. How much of this biological material would we need? Dr. Reeves ran calculations on his tablet. Given the size of the infestation and the dilution factor in ocean water, we'd need samples from several thousand humans, minimum. And we'd need to deliver it directly to the primary Nexus formations to have any chance of effectiveness. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Several thousand humans would need to literally give their blood to create a weapon that might not even work. And even if it did work, someone would have to fly directly into the heart of the Nexus formations to deploy it. Elena stood up, feeling the weight of command settling on her shoulders. I'll contact the other ships. We'll ask for volunteers. Commander, Captain Chen interrupted, you're talking about asking people to weaken themselves through blood loss before going into combat. That's not just dangerous, it's potentially suicidal. Elena met his gaze steadily. Captain, everything we are doing here is potentially suicidal. The question is whether we are willing to try something that might save an entire species. Over. The next 6 hours, Elena was amazed by the response from the human fleet. When word spread about the plan, volunteers came forward from every ship. Not just the military personnel, but civilian scientists, engineers, even the food service staff. The medical bays were soon filled with humans giving blood, tears, and tissue samples. Dr. Reeves worked with incredible efficiency, creating a biological cocktail that theoretical models suggested might be toxic to the Nexus parasites. The mixture was loaded into modified torpedo casings that could be fired directly into the crystalline formations. Elena found herself in the medical bay, watching as her crew members lined up to give blood. Lieutenant Bradley, who had been terrified of needles since childhood, was joking with the medics as they drew multiple vials from his arm. Chief Kim was donating tissue samples, her face pale but determined. Even the ship's cook, a gruff man named Roberts who rarely spoke to anyone, was contributing everything he could. Roberts said as Elena approached his bed, my wife always said I was too stubborn to die. Figured I might as well put that to good use. Elena felt tears stinging her eyes. These people were risking everything for strangers they had just met. Roberts, if we survive this, I'm recommending you for every commendation the service has. The cook grinned. Just make sure there's someone left to give them to, Commander. As the biological weapon was prepared, Elena coordinated with the other ship captains to plan the delivery. The Nexus formations were heavily defended by crystalline structures that could fire energy bursts and release swarms of smaller parasites. Getting close enough to deploy the weapon would require a coordinated assault that would likely cost lives. Captain Chen took command of the tactical planning, his experience with fleet actions proving invaluable. We'll need to create multiple attack vectors to confuse their defenses. The Defiance and Resilience will go in first, drawing their fire. The Prometheus and Curiosity will follow with the biological weapons. Elena nodded, but she was thinking about something else. Marcus, what if we don't come back? What if this doesn't work? The older captain was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Elena, I've been in space for 23 years. I've seen humans do impossible things when they put their minds to it. But more than that, I've seen what happens when good people stand up to evil. Even if we fail, we'll have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. That's worth something. The attack began at dawnship time, with the human fleet moving in formation toward the Cathani homeworld. Elena stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching as the planet grew larger on their screens. The sight of the Nexus infestation was even more horrifying up close, crystalline formations that pulsed with alien intelligence, consuming everything they touched. All ships, this is Commander Vasquez, she announced over the fleet communication system. Today we are fighting for people we've never met, for a world that isn't ours. We are fighting because it's right, because someone has to stand up when everyone else turns away. Whatever happens, I'm proud to serve with all of you. The battle was unlike anything Elena had ever experienced. The Nexus formations responded to their approach with waves of energy that could slice through ship hulls like paper. Swarms of smaller, crystalline parasites launched themselves at the human vessels, attempting to bore through their defenses and begin the conversion process. The Defiance took the brunt of the initial assault, its shields flashing as Captain Chen led his ship directly into the heart of the enemy formation. The destroyer's weapons blazed continuously, carving temporary gaps in the crystalline structures. Behind them, the Resilience and other ships followed, their crews fighting desperately to create an opening. Elena watched in horror as the Resilience was overwhelmed by a swarm of parasites. The small patrol craft's hull began to crystallize, its crew fighting to maintain control even as their ship was literally converted around them. Captain Torres, the ship's commander, kept firing her weapons until the very last moment, buying precious seconds for the other vessels. Prometheus, this is Defiance, Captain Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. We've got you an opening, but it won't last long. Deploy the weapon now. Elena gave the order, and the modified torpedoes streaked toward the largest Nexus formation. The biological cocktail spread through the ocean water, mixing with the mineral-rich environment that the parasites needed to survive. For a moment, nothing happened. Elena felt her heart sinking, wondering if they had sacrificed everything for nothing. Then, slowly, the crystalline formations began to change. The sharp, geometric structures started to soften and collapse. The pulsing light that had indicated the parasite's collective intelligence began to flicker and fade. It's working! Dr. Reeves shouted from his station. The biological agent is breaking down their cellular structure. They can't process our biochemistry. Across the planet's surface, the Nexus formations were dissolving like salt in water. The parasites that had seemed unstoppable were dying, their crystalline matrices collapsing as the human biological weapon spread through the ocean systems. Elena felt a surge of triumph, but it was short-lived. Even as the parasites died, the cost of victory was becoming clear. The Resilience was gone, its crew lost to the conversion process. The Defiance was heavily damaged, its hull breached in multiple places. Several other ships were reporting casualties. All ships, this is Commander Vasquez, Elena announced. Begin rescue operations immediately. We are not leaving anyone behind. The next several hours were a blur of activity. Human crews worked alongside Cathani rescue teams to save survivors and recover the wounded. The ocean worlds that had been dying were slowly returning to life as the Nexus parasites were eliminated. Elena watched from the medical bay as Dr. Reeves worked to save the injured, his face drawn with exhaustion but determined. Ambassador Silthara found Elena in the observation lounge, where she had gone to watch the recovery efforts. The Cathani diplomat moved with the grace of her species, but Elena could see the emotion in her large eyes. Commander, Silthara said quietly, there are no words in any language to express what you and your people have done. You saved us when no one else would even try. Elena looked out at the planet below, where Cathani settlements were already beginning to emerge from their hiding places. We lost good people today, Ambassador. Captain Torres and her crew, others from the damaged ships. I'm not sure salvation is worth that price. Silthara was quiet for a long moment. Commander, in our culture, we believe that some actions create ripples that spread across the galaxy. What you have done here, choosing to help strangers, sacrificing for those you barely know, that will be remembered. Other species will hear this story and perhaps reconsider their own choices. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. I hope so. I hope this means something. It means everything, Silthara replied. You have shown the galaxy what it means to be human. When everyone else calculated costs and benefits, you calculated right and wrong. When everyone else chose safety, you chose courage. As the days passed, Elena watched the recovery efforts with a mixture of pride and sadness. The Cathani civilization was saved, but at a cost that would always weigh on her conscience. She had ended her career in the Exploration Corps, probably facing court-martial when she returned to Earth. Several of her crew members had given their lives, and many more bore the scars of battle, but something unexpected began to happen. News of the human intervention spread across the galaxy, carried by the very species that had refused to help. The story of humans who had given their blood and lives for strangers became a legend that traveled from world to world. Elena received a message from Admiral Harrison, her former superior, 3 weeks after the battle. She expected anger, threats of court-martial, demands for her immediate return. Instead, she found something very different. Commander Vasquez, the Admiral's recorded message began, "What you did was insubordinate, reckless, and contrary to every regulation in the book. It was also the most heroic action I've witnessed in 30 years of service. Earth Command has decided to officially recognize your actions as a new first contact protocol. Congratulations, you've just changed how humanity interacts with the galaxy." Elena stared at the message in amazement. "Sir, I don't understand." "Commander, since news of your action spread, we've received contact requests from over 200 alien species. They all want to establish diplomatic relations with the humans who gave their blood for strangers. You've opened more doors for humanity than any explorer in history." Elena felt tears streaming down her face. They had done it. They had saved the Kethani and somehow created something larger in the process. The galaxy was watching, and for once, they were seeing the best of what humanity could be. Months later, Elena stood in the same observation lounge where she had watched the battle, but now she was looking at something very different. The Kethani homeworld was thriving again. Its oceans clear and full of life. More importantly, it had become a symbol of what was possible when species worked together. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of alien civilizations, all there to sign what was being called the Vasquez Accords, a mutual defense treaty that committed member species to helping each other in times of crisis. Elena had never intended to become a diplomat, but somehow her actions had created a new model for galactic cooperation. Ambassador Silthara approached her, moving with the fluid grace that Elena had come to associate with hope itself. "Commander, the first ships are arriving from the Centauri Federation. They are bringing medical supplies and terraforming equipment to help with the final restoration efforts." Elena smiled, remembering the Centauri officials who had claimed that helping the Kethani would violate their non-interference policies. "What changed their minds?" "You did," Silthara replied simply. "When the galaxy saw humans willing to sacrifice everything for strangers, it made them question their own choices. No one wants to be remembered as the species that stood by while others suffered." Elena looked around the room at the diverse group of beings working together. They were planning joint scientific expeditions, sharing technology, and most importantly, creating protocols for responding to future crises. The Kethani crisis had become a catalyst for something much larger. Dr. Reeves approached, his face tired but satisfied. "Elena, I've been working with the Kethani scientists on the biological weapon we used. They want to develop it into a medical treatment that could help other species fight similar parasitic infections. They are calling it the human solution." Elena laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. The human solution. I like that. As the day wore on, Elena found herself thinking about her grandmother's words about reaching out to others. The old woman had been right, humanity's greatest strength was their willingness to help, even when it cost them everything. They had answered a call that no one else would take, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what was possible. Captain Chen, who had been promoted to admiral after the battle, joined Elena at the observation window. His ship had been repaired and upgraded, but he still bore the scars of the battle in the way he moved. "Elena, I've been thinking about what we did here. About the people we lost and the people we saved. Do you think it was worth it?" Elena considered the question, watching as Kethani children played in the restored oceans below. "Marcus, I think about Captain Torres and her crew every day. I think about the risks we took and the lives we changed. And I keep coming back to the same answer: when someone calls for help, you answer. That's what makes us human." Elena's personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. She opened it to find a recording from her daughter back on Earth, a young woman who had grown up hearing stories about the galaxy and humanity's place in it. "Mom, I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. What you did out there, it's what I want to do with my life. I'm applying to the Exploration Corps next month. I want to be like you and help people who need it." Elena felt tears in her eyes as she looked around at the diverse group.